Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of A Dose of Drew and Friday Night Knives. This is another knife review. This is the Sencut Phantara. And this is actually a fairly full-size knife. It is of the BuyMeACoffee Sencut family. 9CR18. Full-size knife. May not be immediately apparent, but it is there. Let's get into that. Some more particular measurements here. Almost 4 inches on blade length. It's about from tip to scale about 3 3/4. From tip to tail, it is about 8 3/4. So there's a good fair 5 inches of handle there with pretty much 4 inches of sharpened edge when you measure along the edge. So there's a fair amount of knife there. Let's get into the weight here real quick. Oh, how did that get there? Anyway. .8 ounces. Full-size knife. That's quite a bit. It is very skeletonized. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Probably not. But it's very skeletonized. It's almost trussed like a bridge. So it's there to reduce weight. It's also very slim in this dimension. High in this dimension, slim in this dimension. The liners and everything is very, very, very slim. So it gives it a tall and slim sort of bit. In fact, just to give you a full idea here, let me see if this will still work. It is it is under 1/2 inch total thickness. So that's, we'll get the old calipers out here. So 0.46 inches. Overall thickness, blade stock, 0.1165. Let me see if I can get. .117, thereabouts. So it's thin blade stock, and it is wicked thin behind the edge. We're going to grab that right behind the edge. 0.13 will come up here to the highest part of the grind. See if it is any better. .12 thousandths of an inch behind the edge right there. Very thin behind the edge. That is ridiculously thin behind the edge. We in Civivi are famous for being thin behind the edge like that and super slicey. This is no different. And with that tall blade and that high grind, right, not quite a full flat grind, but a high grind. We'll get back to that. This is very slicey. Let's take on some of the standard referential measurements here. The Spider Coast Sandwich, the Paramilitary 2, as you can see, it is slightly longer than the Paramilitary 2 with more hand space as well. Significantly more hand space and significantly larger than the Para 3. But really, to get back to that Paramilitary 2, I want to hit on this just a little bit more. There's almost as much hand space on the Phantara as there is on the Paramilitary 2 with the choil. It is almost the same amount of hand space. That is important. To give it a quick bit for larger, here is the Rat 1. Gives it more, it's approximately the same thickness blade stock, much higher grind. Again, hand space that exceeds the regular of the Rat 1 and gets about halfway into the choil. Lots of hand space on this large knife. Back to our standards here. It's just a blur. And as you can see, it is much larger than that blur. And not just any leak, but a random leak. Very, very large. It's a full-size blade. It's really hard to say it any other way. It is absolutely full size. And the bug out, as you can see, much larger. And the Civivi Elementum, definitely worth looking into, especially if you're looking at full-size knives. It's really hard to get the full effect of full size when you're using all the others, but it is what it is. See, another one here to give an idea. The Civivi Conspirator. See how much larger the Phantara is even than that? It's significant. And, of course, this is it compared to my Wienar. And even though it is much longer and taller than my Wienar, it is not thicker. Okay, maybe it is just the same thickness, but that's beside the point. Anyway, my Wienar is enough, and that's all that needs to be said. All right, let's get into the damn nice design, aesthetics, mechanics, noteworthy points, intended purpose, cost-value ratio, and expectations, and for damn nicer, any requests. First things up, this is incredibly slicey. Just to try and bring it home, the full flat grind on the Paramilitary 2, see if I can show that, it's approximately as tall as the whole grind on the Sencut, if not a little bit less tall. On thicker blade stock, this is so slicey. The design of this is ridiculously slicey. It is pretty much a spear point, and if you look down the middle of that blade to the tip, it's pretty much symmetrical on both sides. It's just ground on only on one side, so it is pretty much a spear point, which is not a bad thing, or an enhanced drop point, however you want to look at it. Very good ergonomics on the saber grip. Little bit of a beak on the back, but there's so much room in there. I can spread my 4 fingers out fully before I hit the beak, so there's plenty of room. Large size hand stab, no problem. Choke up on this for the ergonomics. It's so tall that it takes a full it takes more than one finger knuckle for me, so that little bit of choil is just perfect for up close, as well as being able to choke up and do that. That being said, the scoring capability of working on a surface is fantastic. The meal prep possibilities for a knife like this, again, Oscrate 9CR18 is a decent steel for all that, and that thin edge and very sliciness means that it will food prep fantastically, and anything else that takes that kind of slicing. Soft material, you know, things that work like cheese or meat or anything like that, this will do fantastic, as well as other types of stuff. I like the wood and the black. I think that aesthetic is nice. It's not the first time I've had it on a Civivi or Wii or Sencut. Still, I think it's very classy while still maintaining a bit of naturalness to it. You know, the design in here is, I think the aesthetics work with the design. There's the little bit of dip right here for a good saber grip. The high flat grind is incredibly tall. I'm giving it a lot of slices. I think they missed a good opportunity to make it come up to the actual deployment hole, where it could have followed gone up and then hit right at the bottom of the deployment hole. Just follow that line. I think that was a missed opportunity to bring together the lines of the design a little bit, as well as raise up the grind just a little bit for a little bit better geometry. Not that this needs it, it's so slicey. As well as give a little bit of a lip between the top and the bottom for that deployment hole. As it works, part of the mechanics, the deployment hole works great. The flipper, snappy, very well tuned for such a big blade, right? Absolutely comes down in a fairly linear and controllable motion. It's pretty heavy, so it's going to want to drop. You don't have to double clutch, but that flipper just hits right on your finger, so you can move it out of the way, and then it falls. But falls in a controlled manner. Very well centered, always seems to be. It's more the exception than the rule when it comes to Civivi. And it just kind of, all together, very, very well done. Super slicey, tall. It's not thick as far as blade stock, but tall, thin, got this very, very high grind that's kind of at an angle, so it gives you this where it's a little bit less slicey at the back than it is out here, at the point of the belly where there's a swedge. Moves through material great. Going to slice very, very well. This is absolutely a package piercer, a shrink wrap slicer, very much a cardboard carver. And in the backwards grip, it is an envelope eviscerator extraordinaire. That sliciness makes it just tear through envelopes. So the design is pretty good. It's the design as far as ergonomics, sliciness, its tuning, very, very, very well done. The aesthetics of it, I think, are good. It's different enough with that big blade up front that you're going to be, okay, that's, it's definitely a big old blade up front that also is very useful and well designed and engineered. The mechanics of it, the ball bearings that it runs on, and the tightness of that detent, absolutely top notch. Fantastic little engineering parts, and the mechanics are there. And the noteworthy points are really a lot of the dimensions of it. This is a full-size knife that is incredibly well ground, very thin behind the edge, pretty thin blade stock, especially for a larger knife. So this is going to be slicey. 9CR18 has decent toughness, really good corrosion resistance, and it has the PVD coating on top of it, and a pretty decent edge retention when it comes to it. It'll last all day, but might not last 2 days. So it's a good all-around design, and those are it's designed to be an EDC knife that can do very slicey stuff. And I think that's intended purpose here, is it has that sliciness, that really high grind. So you're talking about soft materials, packages, food, plastic, cardboard. This isn't necessarily a wood carver. It could do it, but that isn't necessarily what it is. This is easily something you could keep in your pocket, and it carries very well, being slim while it's wide. And it's even a little bit, it may even be taller than the Para 2. Yeah, it's basically a little bit taller than the Para 2. Just a hair. If you put the bottoms there, it is just a little bit taller in the pocket than the Paramilitary 2. But it's thin this way. So it's slim in the pocket even if it's wide. So it doesn't carry poorly for how big it is. And that deep carry, it's a Civivi standard pocket clip, you'll see it on a lot of others, is pretty cool. It is full deep carry. It's not set in, it is reversible, and it is recessed screw head. So it has some great things, and it is a decent shape. It's not my favorite, not the worst. It's definitely bad. As you can see, my cat and I have played a little bit, and he got his claws are a little sharp still. Just to address the scratches on that. All right, so yeah, the intended purpose on this is EDC for full size, being a slicey, and it's just different enough to honestly separate itself out from some of the others. The design gives it a little personality. The deployment hole has some nice lines that almost give it an eye shape. It looks organic while still being a knife. And I think that's part of the intended purpose, is to really deliver functionality as a cutting tool in the best way, as being slicey and dicey in that sense, while doing it in a unique and different way that really kind of separates itself from a lot of other things on the market. And the freedom of design here, it manages to do so while being relatively just low key. And the cost to value ratio, I mean, this thing is I believe it's under $60. I want to say it's 55. It could be different right now, and there's so many sales going on, you might be able to find it. But I believe this is under $60. That's a fantastic deal. It's decent steel for the price. You can get it in lots of different G10s and other materials. Like I said, I got the wood. This one might be closer to, might be a little bit above $60 with the wood. But that's the point being, it's within $5, maybe $10 of that price range. It's just a few bucks. It's relatively inexpensive while being very well executed. And that's, I mean, we were used to that with or with the Vivi. You know, they were such a great budget arm of They've kind of crept up in recent years into the mid, and I think Sencut does kind of fill that really good budget option for the company. They keep the steels at like 9CR18 and D2 and very, very low priced good performance, while keeping everything else well done and just giving you very well executed basics. And they know well executed basics. It's really, really good. It feels great in the hand. The price is low. Its intended purpose is very well done by the design. And I could see this being in a different steel. You know, you could do titanium. It's already fairly heavy, but that sliciness, that thin blade, like I would want some tough steel. Like this would be great in S35VN or CPM 154. But I really do believe that it's got a greater value to users in this budget configuration. Putting S35VN would really increase the price. And for the sliciness, you could get something that has better edge retention. This isn't a chopper per se, but I honestly believe that outside of cardboard and maybe a few other fibrous things, this isn't going to be cutting a lot of very abrasive materials. Its design really doesn't lend it to that, other than like cardboard or some hard plastic. It's not that you can't do it. Just on a daily basis, on an average day, this isn't going to be doing that. And so the steel is fine. Yes, it could be done the same way. Honestly, if there's anything that would possibly benefit from Damas steel, it would be this design, where you could, but not necessarily the $500 Damas steel, but just a Damascus type steel that would go well, would at least maintain the same edge retention while giving you a little bit more aesthetics. I could see something like Damas steel going in here, or a Damascus pattern welded type. It doesn't. Yeah, you could do a magna cut, but with that being such a premium steel and all the toughness and everything that goes with this thin edge, it's not there. 14C28N, 9CR18. The list of steels that work really well with the high toughness and the thin edge, stuff like that, isn't huge. Yeah, you could do S30, S35, right? There's or S45. There's other steels out there that you could leverage the toughness. CPM 154, S35VN come to mind. But the cost increase may not be worth the actual day-to-day value that it gets. There's always going to be people who will want it, right? There's someone like me or other enthusiasts out there who be like, no, give me that in a heavier duty steel. There's some, steel, some knife steel snobs, which I do consider myself one. I might turn my nose up at 8CR13 despite it being a decent eutectic stainless steel. For a lot of other purposes, but on the smaller knives, I tend to sort of turn my nose up at those. I'll get into a steel video here soon that is in the works, but let's just say, there's people out there who will do it. But this is a perfectly good steel for this. It's thin enough, slicey enough. It is tough enough, corrosion resistant and abrasion resistant enough to do very well. And that thin edge means it's going to slice incredibly well. And I mean, like, it is right on the, let's see if I can do it on the tip. I shaved it instead. Just want to point out that that's slicey, even on really, really, really receipt paper, right? Really, really fine paper. Works very good. So there's not a lot of requests to bring onto this. They did a really good job of doing it. It's a great design. Yes, you could do a higher end one, and I wouldn't say that would be bad. I wouldn't want something like 20 CV. I would definitely be going more along the lines of like S30V, S35VN, S45VN, or something that's really working on that toughness, CPM 154. If you were to increase the steel, that would be somewhere to go with it. But the rest of it, I wouldn't want the titanium. It's already heavy enough. Carbon fiber, maybe, depends upon the steel, but the wood is nice and warm. The G10 and other options are there. You could definitely increase the steel, but 9CR18 is a decent budget. Yes, CPM 154 could be there. D2 I wouldn't necessarily want because of the toughness issues. You'd want a higher toughness steel with that kind of thinness. 14C28N maybe could be another one. But again, these are budget steels with that kind of toughness. Otherwise, it's pretty well done. That's hard to say when a budget knife design is sort of maximized with a budget steel. That's actually a good thing. It means they really thought out this design. And yeah, you could put a different blade steel in there, and while you would get some performance, it's not leaps and bounds. It's just slightly more. You get that slightly more performance. You get almost this linear progression of performance that goes with it. And the design lends itself to it, but it also means you don't lose a huge amount when you don't have that. And that's a good thing. So this is a really interesting knife, and I really can recommend it. The design, unique and different enough to really put us up there, while looking good in the aesthetics departments and working fantastically. The blade geometry, the bearings in the pivot are very, very well tuned, along with the detent. Extremely good on the mechanics. It's incredibly thin behind the edge with decently thin blade stock, tall grind. It's a tall knife all the way around. It's tall in the pocket. It's relatively slim this way compared to how tall it is. It doesn't have really contoured. It has very well chamfered scales, but it's not super contoured. Very thin that way. So it's slicey, has good steel, decent materials all the rest of the way around. Its intended purpose is that EDC specialty, the food prep, the letter opening, the package opening, plastic, maybe a little rope or a couple of things here and there, but just a general EDC use of a knife. And it's big enough to do so for full-size hands. If you're someone, it's not any secret that small knives work well on this channel. All sorts of small knives are ones I'm a fan. They tend to carry very well. It just seems weird to compare one to the size of a Sencut. But that's really the idea behind it. If you like a large size knife, this isn't going to deliver. And it's going to deliver it at a reasonable price with a great price to performance ratio. That makes it highly recommendable. That makes it a budget knife that is the pound for pound, right? Dollar for donuts, bang for the buck, however you want to say it. This Phantara actually delivers on a lot of belly, on extreme sliciness, on materials that don't feel inexpensive even though they're on an inexpensive knife. And execution and engineering that we in Civivi are famous for, and they bring it to Sencut. And so it's really, really an all-around. I'm actually going to give this one, and you won't hear me say this much on the larger knives, it's not as lightweight I always like, but it balances extraordinarily well in the hand. There's the balance point right behind the pivot. So balances extraordinarily well, feels lighter than it is. I'm going to give this one a 96. It's incredibly well done. Hidden lanyard post right there, right? So it's so many little details Civivi or Sencut got right. We Civivi Sencut, the companies got right on this. And very little that you can say they got wrong. You might like a bigger choil, but it's still pretty good for how tall this is. You can do a pinch grip with this little divot that goes to the deployment hole if you absolutely have to. The detent tuning, the ability to get a finger in anywhere on the deployment hole and slow roll it or anything, you almost forget that it's also a flipper. incredibly well done. It's hard to complain. With the intended purpose being EDC greatness, it does it at a low purchase price. It's really hard to complain. Very, very well done. Damn nice. Not much to request. Again, the only thing really is to say, I would like better steel. The cost that comes with it, you get linear performance increase. Yeah, people like me, and I'm sure there's a lot out here, we like our aesthetics. I would love a carbon fiber handle with a magnet cut blade on this, but the cost increase it might be 3 to 4 times the cost, and it won't be 3 to 4 times the knife. And so they did a really good job of maximizing the price to performance as well as the execution of the design. And they should be commended for it. It's very, very well done. And the performance is fantastic. It is so slicey. That tall grind with that, it has a better grind than some of my kitchen knives when it comes to stock thickness as well as just grind height and behind the edge thickness. And kitchen knives are designed to be slicey, and this thing is slicier than many of my kitchen knives. Excuse me. And again. So that makes it incredibly useful as a pocket knife. And I'm going, instead of just going on, I'm going to kind of leave it there. If you were expecting something that's a good value, which I was, it delivers. In fact, it delivers more than I expected. I expect Civivi and Sencut. We, not so much, so they usually do, but I always expect them to deliver great value. And Sencut has really done extraordinarily well with the Phantara. Seems to be going below the radar of a lot of folks, but man, the sliciness of this knife is pretty spectacular. And like the rest of their knives, and maybe my example is just a little bit better than others, but it is very well tuned. Very, very, very well tuned for a big blade. Right? It's not going to slam on your fingers or anything. It's hard to even complain. It's hard to find something to complain about other than it's cheaper steel for a lower price. They didn't skimp on anything. They gave really good value for a really good price. And an outstanding design with their classic and company-wide design execution. Their execution is always top-notch, and this is no different. So I'm going to leave it there and let you guys sound off in the comments a little bit. What do you think about the size of this and doing more of the large knives? I've done a lot of small knives, trying to get some more of the bigger knives in. Definitely want to hear from you guys. But in the meantime, go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like, be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.